So I want to show you some examples of sentences with objects and direct objects. So I have here the first one. The usher found us seats. We have usher as the subject of the sentence and he is doing the action, found. And now we want to find, let's try to find the direct object. So we ask, the usher found what? And we have seats. Remember that the direct object is the noun affected by the action verb. So it is the direct receiver of the action. So he found seats, direct object. For whom did he find seats? He found seats for us. So we have us as the indirect object. So while the direct object is affected by the verb found, this affects the indirect object. And I want you to keep in mind the placement. We have verb, direct object, and remember that the indirect object is between the verb and the direct object. Indirect object. Okay, and so when I mean that when we are looking for the indirect object, just because it's in the middle does not mean that we are going to count the words and it's going to take us right to this. It doesn't matter how many words are in between the verb and the indirect object and between the direct object and direct object. It can have as many words as it requires, but the point is that the placement is just between the verb and the direct object. The indirect object does not come after the direct object. Now let's look at the second sentence. I'll gladly lend you my typewriter. So I as the subject, lend as the verb, you my typewriter. So what do you think is the direct object? Let's look at that before. So what will I lend you? I will not lend you, but I will lend you my typewriter. So the typewriter is the noun or the direct object and the direct receiver of the verb lend. So lend is affecting this because this is what I will lend you. I'll gladly lend you what? Like, look at that. Answers the question whom or what. I met Mason. I met whom? I met what? Mason. So Mason is the receiver of the action. So that's what we need to find, the receiver of the action verb lend. So it's established that this is the direct object. The verb, this is an adverb. Doesn't affect the sentence. So a sentence can be short, can be straight to the point with just the subject, the verb, and the direct object. Or it could be a bit longer. It could have adverbs, adjectives, other parts of speech in between them. That does not really just affects the placement of the objects and everything, but it doesn't mean that there is no direct object or that gladly, which is an adverb, could be a direct object or an indirect object. It's not like that. And let's try to find the indirect object. And the indirect object is between this and this. So we have two words, you and my. And an indirect object, remember, it's a noun or pronoun. And the indirect object, whoever that is, you, will receive the direct object, which is the typewriter. So I'll gladly lend my typewriter to whom or to what? I'll gladly gladly lend my typewriter to you. Indirect object, it is between the verb and the direct object. And we have found the important parts. And now let's go to the third sentence.